Hello, welcome to the Northland Artist Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly, I'll be your host. Normally I have Andrew McKenzie sitting across from me. Unfortunately, Andrew's a little bit busy at the moment. A lot of work for him going on. So Andrew, once again, I'll do my best. Hope to see you back in the chair real soon. In case this was edited where you can hear me sort of humming the intro at the start, man, I really like the intro. It is really, really good. So I just want to send a quick shout out to Steve, who's the music producer that did the intro music. I believe it's called Hoof Prints, and man, it's a mint song. When we were sort of designing the whole intro piece, I got presented with a few beats that Steve had created, and that was kind of the one that stuck, and I just thought it really suited the conversation. So, Steve, mate, I don't know if I formally thanked you, but thanks very much. You're awesome. What can I say about Pete O'Neill? You know, a really interesting guy. He was the first musician that we have had on the podcast, obviously excluding myself and Andrew, Andrew especially because he's still a functioning musician at the moment, but Pete was the first guest. Really cool. Talks about his background, sort of growing up in Dargaville, discovering his love of guitar quite early on, then talks about moving over to Perth, or Melbourne, and then Perth, I think it was, and then sort of forming different bands and different iterations with different members, and then sort of doing the touring thing and stuff like that. Man, and then it gets really deep, and it gets really interesting because he starts talking really openly and honestly about the things that went on, you know, when you're a musician, and then he talks about moving to New Zealand, or moving back to New Zealand, and really turning his life around. He talks about his new project that he's got coming up, which sounds absolutely amazing. He talks about what gigs he's got coming up as well. It was just a really fascinating conversation in terms of hearing another musician and their perspective and their journey and how they've done things. So look, I'm going to keep this intro nice and short today, everyone. Let us sit down and have a conversation with Pete O'Neill. O'Neill. Thank you very much.
I am he.
You are he. Thank you very much for joining us in the Five Elements Media Studio for the Northland Artist Conversation. We really do appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's it's really cool. And I think our viewers and listeners are going to really get a real treat out of this because you are our first official musician. So very cool. I know, very cool. So I'm super excited to have you on. So it's really good.
Yeah, no, it sounds great.
Yeah. So what we'll sort of do is we'll just talk a little bit about your background, where you came from, what got you into music, because those sorts of journeys are always quite fascinating, and everyone's had a very different journey as well.
Yep.
Now, on your notes, I was born in Te Kopuru, just outside of Dargaville.
Yeah.
Lovely Dargaville. I've actually quite a few friends over there. It's actually quite a nice place.
It is.
No takeaways. Or no, like, big fast food.
Hey, listen, I just went to the best fish and chip shop in New Zealand, in Dargaville, to my friend Rick's place, and had fish and chips before I came over here. So, yeah, no, we got great takeaways.
You do, but none of the super fast food places like McDonald's or Burger King
that's
or
a good
anything
thing.
like that. Oh, no, that's a very good thing. It's a very good thing. And you attended St. Joseph's Primary School, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Good Catholic boy.
A good Catholic boy.
Yeah.
Well, a Catholic boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bit more accurate, probably.
And then went to secondary school at Dargaville High School. Now, you had an interest at quite an early age in music, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, my my dad was really into music, and my mum always said as a kid that like I just took to it straight away, you know, and
Yeah.
like she could put a record on, as long as there was music playing, I'd sit there and listen to that, and she could go and do. This is going to sound terribly 70, you know, 60s, but Mum could do the housework, and I'd sit there and listen, and as long as there was music playing, I'd sit and listen to it, you know.
But is that any different from today? You know, your mum put a record on and you'd listen to music. For me, my parents put me in front of the TV.
Yeah, well,
kids nowadays have got devices.
Yep.
Is it any different? The answer is no.
I don't know. That's like it's an interesting question, isn't it?
Thank you.
You know,
it is.
That's an interesting question. Is it different? I don't know. I think I don't know very much about. I've heard a little bit and listened to a little bit about theories about like child development, music.
Sure.
How, and so I'm interested in that aspect. And I don't know. Maybe the fact it's purely oral is different to having that visual stimulus as well.
Possibly.
And I don't know, but that's an interesting subject, definitely to look into, or interesting question. Is it any different? I don't know, but for me, it was early age. I took an interest.
What sort of music? What bands and artists were Mum and Dad putting on?
You know, apart from the classic sort of Neil Diamond, I got a big dose of Neil Diamond when I was a kid. But you know, Dad would bring home Beatles albums, and there was classical music and jazz. He liked jazz and stuff like that. So it's all sorts of different stuff. And like to this day, I love all sorts of different music. Like for me, music is like if I hear music, there's something about it puts me in another space. You know.
So you're obviously exposed to quite a wide range of music from Mum and Dad. Yeah,
I would say, you know, fairly, you know, nothing too outrageous. But then also remember, you know, like this is in the days of, I think, was it 1ZB, the radio station?
I remember 1ZB.
Was it 1ZB?
I remember
Was it Move Smith? 1ZB, and you know, you'd hear songs by Petula Clark and all that big band stuff, and you know, all that sort of stuff that was produced out of Britain, Lulu, and all those sort of Tom Jones and Engelbert and all those sort of things.
Met Lulu.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, she's a lovely lady. She's very short, but was an absolute sweetheart when I met her quite a few years ago. She's very cool.
Yeah, right.
So you're obviously discovering all of these artists through records and on the radio.
Yeah, I don't know about discovering, but I was hearing it, you know, like I was just hearing everything, and, you know, I loved it, you know, it's sort of, and then of course, you know, what happens, I had older siblings, I've got 2 older brothers and an older sister and a younger brother, but of course my older brothers went off to uni and teachers college, and so did my sister, and, you know, as they came back, they were bringing back, well, even when they were at secondary school and stuff like that, I was listening to the stuff at primary school that they were listening to at secondary school, so I got an early into Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and that 70s rock, Bachman Turner Overdrive, that sort of thing, you know, so and that's what really sort of got me, this is for me, you know. So I think it was Led Zeppelin, you know, Led Zeppelin for me was
they sort of considered like the flagship band for you?
Yeah, I don't know, like, but it was sort of kind of, I don't know, it was like listening to, I remember, I think when I read in my notes, I think one of my first really sort of musical experiences that I remember thinking, what the you know, is this? There's hearing the song Since I've Been Loving You by Led Zeppelin, and like not really, I didn't know what blues was or anything like that, but I'd heard it and I just it was an electric feeling, you know, of this is for me. I'm not, you know. And so that's when I got into really like the idea of playing guitar. And
so that was the song that prompted you to pick up the instrument.
Yeah, that was basically it.
Wow.
I'd always, like when I was a kid, I had a ukulele, and when I, you know, like there was always like I had a cousin out on the farm that had a guitar with like 3 strings that I'd pick up and muck around on, and that sort of thing, you know. But hearing that song, that was kind of what really sparked it, thinking, and then finding out about Jimmy Page and other guys, and that's when I really, you know, Hendrix and stuff like that, and then that's when I really sort of got the bug, and then it was cool because there was some other guys at school that were into it as well, and we'd sort of get together and
Far out. That's cool though.
But even back then, just finding a guitar with that was playable kind of was a bit of a mission, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the gold mine.
Yeah. You know, yeah. A friend of mine makes me laugh. He says, you know, we had these guitars the action was so high off the neck, you know, you had to have a black belt in karate to be able to play it. You know, and that makes me laugh because it's kind of what it was like. But, you know, you get there. And, you know, like, of course, there was no, like, if I want to learn something now, I go to YouTube and there's 15 different guys to show me how to play sort of thing. There was none of that.
Yeah, no.
So, you know, yeah, interesting. Yeah, very different. But
it's funny. I read a meme on Facebook it'd be a couple of days ago, and it was kids don't know how good they've got it nowadays. Back in my day, we had to guess the lyrics. We were singing that shit wrong for years. And I was just
That's right. Peter Kay does a very funny skit of. Have you seen it? Yeah,
he does.
You know, it's just classic, isn't it? You know,
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
There's been and there's been a few other comedians along the way that have kind of built comedy around music. There's
plenty to laugh at, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I think of there's a Australian trio called the Axis of Awesome.
Oh yeah, I haven't heard of them, but
and they do a comedy piece called the 4-Chord Song.
Yeah, right.
And they literally take the same 4 chords and they throw all of these popular songs over the top of it. It's genuinely funny because then they start blending like James Blunt with Rihanna and Coldplay, and it's just it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
So yes, I could imagine picking up an instrument and trying to play along would have been a lot more challenging than what it is now.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, of course it was. I mean, you forget over the years as you play so much, you know, like now at home, I've got a guitar at hand.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll just sit there while I'm watching TV, sort of thing, and it's so familiar. But of course, when you start, it's
a
horribly
world of unfamiliar.
It is. It's a world of mystery and sort of I don't know. It was always a sort of a bit of an aura about it, almost, or probably because it wasn't around so much, you know, and it was a bit harder to get your hands on a guitar, a decent guitar. Some people to me in Dargaville were very kind to me when I first started out, and let me borrow quite good instruments and stuff like that. And there's a couple of guys over there that were really gave me good advice too, and stuff like that, you know, and helped me. One particular guy was a bit older than me, like he was in his early 20s, and I was about sort of 14 or 15, and he'd get me around his place, and we'd have a jam and stuff like that. And you sort of, you know, those guys actually had quite a lot of influence on what I did, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, like so I was quite lucky like that, you know. Like I don't know, maybe there was a bit more of that around. Maybe not, but
excuse me. Yeah.
And I still think of those guys these days, you know, like you know, guys that had good bands over there, and so because it's quite a rocking scene. A guy I know, he's in his 70s now, but he was telling me, you know, like back in the day around Dargaville, they could work like 5 or 6 nights a week playing.
Wow.
Yeah, like no trouble. They were doing the sort of, that's when the Beatles first came out and all that sort of stuff. And they were doing like bowling club socials and football clubs and squash clubs and this group. And that's what people did. They had live entertainment and danced. And
yep, they did.
You know, so.
They absolutely did.
So, yeah, they worked a lot. And so, you know, it was quite a good little scene like that, and I was quite lucky to grow up like that, you know. And it was a good place to grow up too, Dargaville, you know.
Sounds still a lovely place too.
No, it is actually. It's a really good place. It's interesting. It's very conservative, and in some ways that holds it back. But the people there are absolutely the salt of the earth, you know.
They are 100%. They are.
And you'll never die wondering or you know, they'll tell you what they think, you know, which is great, you know. It's you know,
like, it's not afraid to call a spade a spade.
Yeah, no, that's right, and you know, like we probably need a bit more of that at the moment, you know.
Tell me about your first band. So you've started practicing as your first band in high school.
How long have you got?
Wow, I mean, because to me, every musicians, everyone's first band, is it can either be that moment where you're like, this is amazing, I'm going to continue doing this, or this was the biggest bunch of ass ever, and I've seen people just go and just step away from music because of it.
The first real proper band I was in, where I say I got my first proper professional residency, was in Western Australia, because when I was about 23 or 24, something like that.
Right. Okay. Yep.
And that was like I left New Zealand when I was about 20, and I went to Melbourne. I lived there for about 8 months, and then I went across the Nullarbor with a friend of mine. And we drove across the Nullarbor and went to Perth, and that was in 1986 when the America's Cup was there.
That's a big drive.
Yeah, it is a big drive, and it was really interesting too. But it was a really interesting thing to do, actually, a big change of culture, because there's a big difference in culture between Australia and especially the north of New Zealand,
Yeah.
So, so I ended up in Perth in 86, and then I was there for a couple of years, and I got really serious about playing at one stage, and decided, I was going to have a real crack at it. So I ended up getting some decent gear, and we got some guys together. I met a friend through some friends that played bass, and you know how it goes. And then this other guy I knew, he knew this guy that played drums. But that was the first sort of professional band I was in, and we got our first kind of residency. There used to be in a very rock and roll way, it's burnt to the ground now, but there used to be a pub in Maylands, a suburb just out of the city. There used to be this pub in Maylands called the Cascades Tavern, and it was kind of a casino, TAB, food hall and entertainment centre, like a kind of little mini casino, and it was called Cascades Tavern because when you walked in the door there was like a fountain that cascaded down these rocks.
Of course there was.
And it was classy.
It sounds classy.
But it was a great setup. It was a great way to learn because we'd get these residencies. We'd get like 6 Friday nights in a row, and then you'd bugger off.
Yeah.
Go around the outskirts of Perth, playing in all the little pubs and stuff like that till the next residency came up. But they had this great car park out the back. You could drive and roll up the roller door.
Literally load the gear.
Yeah, load the gear in on stage. It's at showtime. The curtains open. Away you went.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my introduction to playing live, which sort of stood me in good stead in a way because it was a great way to put on a show. And they encouraged you there, not you. They didn't encourage you to go out and mingle with the audience, and you had your space backstage, and they'd bring you your drinks or whatever you wanted, sort of thing. Yep. And it was a show, So. And that was and we'd do 4 45-minute sets a night. So you play. Yeah, it was brutal.
That's
and I can remember doing a Friday night. We did a New Year's Eve there. One New Year's Eve, we did a New Year's Eve night there, and it had been 44 degrees during the day. I think the overnight low was about 30. And that was a pretty brutal night because it was a very small stage and lights just above your head, and that was the old par cans,
The big one, yeah. And they were just you're not dimming them; they're either off or they're on.
Yeah, that's right. So that was and interestingly, that was a very. Yeah, but it was a great place to play because it was the punters were all in, the curtain opened, show was on, and it was good fun, and it was a really great way to start. But of course, that band ended up having its issues, and
they all do at some point.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, it was it was pretty crazy, and that was my. I don't know if I should tell the story, but the lead singer, unfortunately, I won't name names. But he was a nice guy, but he had some problems, and it turned out after sort of 6 months or so together, he ended up. I had this friend who was a friend of a friend she was an ex-model, very good-looking lady, and her and him ended up getting together.
Okay.
And it was a situation where you got two people together that were just the perfectly wrong chemistry for each other.
Oh, right.
And then the craziness really began.
Yeah.
And so that was my introduction to rock and roll. And
Two people that are both, have both got crazy on the radar. Come together and the crazy amplified.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the crazy becomes greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like crazy squared.
Yeah. So that's exactly what happened. So that was my first band I was in. So, but I managed to survive it, and no one ended up getting hurt, and a few other crazy things happened with that band as well, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I lived in Auckland for 7 years, and I toured New Zealand. I think a lot of so when did I join? I joined when I was 32. So all of my crazy days, the younger days, and we can talk about this, because it's when you're in your
full flush of youth,
early 20s, so to speak. It's you can fall quite easily into the drugs and alcohol.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is kind of one of those things that sort of that can happen. And when we were certainly touring, we certainly saw that with quite a few of the younger bands.
Yeah.
So you've had your first band, you've had your first big solid experience, you're getting these residencies, band falls apart. Where do you go from that point onwards?
Well, what happened kind of was, it didn't kind of end up as band falls apart. What kind of happened was one person would drop off, and then we'd pick someone else up, and then something else would happen, and then someone else would come in, and it ended up in a stage where I ended up sort of managing that band for about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And it ended, what happened was that the lead singer thing happened, and then the drummer thing happened, and then
it's always the drummers.
Oh yeah, but no. And then there was a few incarnations, and there's a few other things going on in the meantime. Like I played in a few original bands and bits and pieces, and I did some studying over there when I did some. I went kind of back to school in a way, and I also did a music course and did some other things over there. So over a sort of 10-year period, that first sort of 5 years, I kind of built that band up.
Yeah.
And then that sort of did fall away a bit, and then I ended up sort of working in various bands and doing various stuff here and there. And then for about the last 5 years or so that I was over there, I got this other band together with the original bass player that had been in this band.
Oh, from right at the
beginning.
Yeah, sure.
And then him and me got together with this very good drummer and good bass player. Good singer, and that band stuck together for quite a few years.
Yeah,
and and that was quite a good thing too. So we ticked that along, and so it was one of those things. It was the band didn't sort of
the band didn't end, but you're having kind of that natural attrition where people will come in and come out, based on their life.
Interestingly, over there, which I've found not quite so much here. Well, I don't know whether it's location or what, but there was a very good scene over there, right? There was a few people over there. There was a guy called Rick Steele. I don't know if Rick's still around over there at the moment, but he was he ran the blues club out of a place called the Charles Hotel, which was a big hotel, and you'd go there on a Tuesday night, was club night, and there'd be like heaps and heaps of people there, man. It was like full on, and so we'd do the odd gig there at the Charles and stuff like that, but there was lots of musicians there, so you met people. So even though it was competitive to get into gigs and you had to hustle for gigs and stuff like that, but guys would help you out. Like I had this friend Gary Davis, and he'd, like, if our lead singer couldn't make a gig, he would come and slot in, and we'd do some of his stuff and some of our stuff, and so it was quite a good collegiate kind of way of working, if you got in with the right people, and people would invite you to come and do parts of their shows and stuff like that, and so it was quite good, like it was quite a good scene like that.
Northland Artist Conversation proudly supports 1737. 1737 are a free service that you can contact either via phone or text message. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On their website, 1737.org.nz, they say, are you feeling stressed or just need to talk to someone? Are you feeling down or a bit overwhelmed? Do you know someone who is feeling out of sorts? Whatever it is, they're there for you. Free call or free text, anytime, 24 hours a day. And you'll get to talk with a trained counsellor or talk with a peer support worker. Their service is completely free. They offer brief one-on-one counselling support sessions for those people that need it a little bit more than normal. Please do not be afraid to reach out if you need support or if you know someone else that needs support as well. 1737 are a fantastic service, and we here at the Northland Artist Conversation are very, very proud to support what they do. 1737, free text or free call. So you've obviously had the regrets with the singer, and you should have, listened to the advice and taken. Where do you sort of go from there? Because I'm guessing at this point are you sort of leaning more towards originals, or are you still in that covers original space?
I always played in covers bands for the time that I was over there, and that was where I got most of my work, which was sort of a good thing but a bad thing. And but I always sort of was interested in original music, and I ended up in 2 or 3 original bands. One was a reasonably good sort of original band,
okay.
but I wasn't really into the songwriting at that stage. That came way later. I was just more into playing guitar, and I wasn't singing or anything like that in those days. I just played guitar. So
yeah.
So
was it just about being on stage and being in front of people?
Yeah, and actually, like, I'd gone down that road of kind of it all was a bit too much partying, and I'd be together for the shows, but there was way too much partying and way too much shit going on, which is in the end why I ended up coming back to New Zealand, because I kind of went down a bit of a road where without
questionable choices were made.
Yeah, very questionable choices were made, and one of the things that helped to keep me alive was I was never been an intravenous drug user or anything like that.
Right, okay, yeah.
So I kept away from that going down that certain path, but nevertheless I'd made some sort of pretty
questionable choices.
And I'd sort of got myself into a state when I came back to New Zealand. That was 20 years ago. I came back in 99.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's quite a long time ago now, but when I came back, I sort of came back with the idea of I want to clean my act up.
A clean slate,
yeah,
if you will.
Yeah. I'd been working pretty hard to try and get something happening, and nothing had kind of really worked out, and it was getting harder and harder, sort of for various reasons over there, and I'd probably not made life that much easier for myself by some of my own behaviour and stuff that. Which, it's a bit embarrassing to think of, but I got to own to it that I was a bit of a fuck up there for a while. So. So I came back here with that kind of idea of, and like I'd actually given a lot of stuff up in Australia. So when I came back here, the main problem I had kind of was drinking, and I had to get on top of that. But at the same time, I did get on top of that, and I've been 20 years off the juice now. And
congratulations.
Yeah. So it's and actually I've been very lucky, because for me it was making the decision was the hardest thing. Once I made the decision, it wasn't so hard anymore.
Right, okay.
And it became more about... And also, like, when I came back to New Zealand, I was here for about 18 months, and I met my future wife. And so having my wife there, I'd sort of got to the stage where I realised if I don't do something about this drinking, I'm not going to have...
a wife.
Well, I'm not going to have Erica in my life, So that was... Although I did it for myself, I also did it for her and for, to get... to try and get that part of my life back together, which I'm really glad I did. And then, happy marriage for 20 years. And
congratulations again, yeah. So you've obviously, I think you said it really, really well, is once you've made, because you can have that decision and you can have that thought, and then you go through the whole process of doing it. But once you go, that's it, I'm moving, you make it happen.
Yeah, I'd sort of say, I try not to talk about it too much because I think it's a little bit cliche sometimes, the rock and roll and drugs and booze and all that sort of stuff. But if it can help someone, and
absolutely,
and if anyone asks me, I sort of say to them in a strange way, it's kind of the battle you have to lose to win. You've got to kind of throw up your hands and say, you win, booze. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I ended up doing. And and once it's sort of, once I made the decision, it was much easier to be able to deal with. And like that's just for me. I know there's people that struggle every day with it, and I feel my heart goes out to those people because that's a real battle,
Yep.
But fortunately, I've been, nowadays you couldn't make me have a drink. I've just got no interest in it whatsoever.
So you've made the choice. You're coming back to New Zealand. You're back here in '99, just before the millennium. Are you diving straight back into music? Are you going, I'll get a job? Where's your sort of head at that point?
When I first came back, I was still sort of drinking, So, and I jumped straight kind of back into it. When I first came back, I met these guys, and one of them, unfortunately, is no longer with us. But they were quite good guys, and they had this sort of thing going. So I ended up playing guitar with them for a while.
Yeah.
And then I was in another band that actually used to go and do the Jazz and Blues Festival up at the Bay of Islands.
Oh, right. Yeah,
like
that's
that.
A great festival.
Yeah. And I haven't been for a long time. I actually met my wife there. That's how I met my wife.
Wow.
So I was doing that, and then when it actually came crunch time to actually stop drinking, I did actually stop for a couple of years. I kind of stopped with the bands, and what I also did was my playing had got very sort of stale and I was in a rut basically,
uninspired.
Okay, and just going through the motions. And so what I decided to do was I put down the guitar for a little while, and I decided to actually study music and do some music theory.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I did my grades, my music grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, with a very lovely lady called Evelyn Hatfield, who I hope is still alive and kicking here in Carmo.
Yeah.
And Evelyn took me through my grades, and so I did those exams, and I learned a little bit more about theory, and then I made myself... every time I picked up the guitar, I made myself play things in major keys, and to learn more. And I've always been interested in trying to continue to develop.
Yeah.
Because you can see guys that don't. You know
what I mean? Yeah, you can.
And I don't want to be one of those. I want to keep learning and developing and trying to improve, as I get better and become a better musician, So that's what I did, and it ended up. I took sort of like I was out of it for a couple of years, and then when I came back, it was very interesting. Actually, I did we did a show as part of what was then the Cowrie Festival at a pub called the Commercial Hotel in Dargaville, which had a lovely big dining room. And
where's the Commercial?
It's down in a place called Mangawari, which is where the old dairy factory used to be. It used to be the pub for the dairy factory workers, really, basically. And
I said dairy factory, I knew exactly where you were. Yeah.
And that was the first show I'd ever done sober in my life. And so,
wow.
I've actually got a photo of it on my wall in my studio. That's me playing sober for the first time. And so that was interesting. And then ever since then, it's been, onward and upward, and like there's been a few times, because New Zealand's not quite, especially Northland, it's not quite so easy to connect with musicians and stuff like that. And so I've had a few bands and done quite a lot of musical projects and worked with quite a few people and done sort of this here and there and been in the odd band, but it's only in the last few years. I actually was in a duo with a guy, and we went around doing a lot of acoustic stuff, and then and then we went to record a CD. Yeah. And the drummer we got that kind of clicked, and I ended up in a band called Rust, which toured around Northland, which was quite a good band.
Okay,
Dan Collett was a sort of singer and songwriter, and Dan writes a good song, and so we had quite a good show that we took on the road around Northland and played quite a bit of stuff. And then I produced an album for them because I got my own studio at home and stuff like that. And I produced the odd little things here and there.
Yeah, sure.
And then that kind of didn't work out. Like, without sort of disparaging anyone or, just band stuff. There was a bit of a disagreement about like what we should be doing for our next album. And I had some stuff written.
Yeah.
So I took that stuff I'd written and thought, I'm just going to do this stuff myself.
Okay.
And that's what, like I was talking to you about
we were talking about before.
And that's
okay.
how I've ended up in Road Dog, because what happened was I started working. I've got a friend who's a very good drummer called Dave Morello. He's a Canadian guy that lives in Auckland, and he's like Tama drums and Dorsey.
Tama and Peisty,
Peisty cymbals. And Dave's a monster player, and he's a really good guy too. He's a great, fun-loving, easygoing professional, but easygoing and lots of fun to work with. And him and I had done various things over the years, and always had a lot of fun. And so I got asked Dave if he'd come and do the sessions, and then my singing teacher was Caitlin Smith. So I asked Caitlin, do you know any good bass players? And she said, the guy in my band's a good player. He'll come and do some sessions for you. So Aaron came on board to do the bass, and I think Aaron had heard of Dave. So we got together and started working on the songs, and it sort of clicked quite well, and everyone quite liked it. And at the same time, sort of things weren't working out for Dave's band, so he sort of said, look, we should just put a band together around this.
Yeah, make it a permanent thing.
And that's how it worked out. So I ended up with these two awesome players, Aaron Codell and Dave Morello, and we've just been as happy as Larry as a three-piece. It was just pre-COVID, so we've been together for a while. We've put a show together. We've recorded an EP. We're doing a show in Devonport on the 17th of September that Epic Breweries has got behind, and Epic are going to sponsor that. So we were chuffed about that. So things have worked out great. So it's only taken me like 35 years to finally get.
Sometimes it takes a while to find the quality players that you connect with, right?
Yeah, well, I think there's always been those times over the years where you got those good little purple patches, but it's really like, I don't know, and I sort of like it's so. It's a strange world, and I think it's strangely enough, if I'd had any kind of success like that turned into money earlier in my career, I don't think I would have survived it.
Right.
Maybe it is good that it's taken me all this time to get to a place where I'm like now. I think I'm a success just because I get to play with Dave and Aaron. So, you know what I mean. That's really for me all I need. So
success isn't always measured by money, though, right? It's measured by enjoyment and satisfaction. Personal enjoyment as well.
Yeah, that's like if if I walk out of rehearsals and I feel like a battery that's been charged up, and I know I just know in myself that's where you want to be. That's that feeling you want to have, when you leave rehearsals. You go, like, yeah, that was awesome, and you do. It definitely is like it's sort of charging up, So
which is that's how it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be, because it's the worst job in the world if it's not.
Yeah.
If you're not enjoying it, it's like don't do it.
Yeah. It's either one of those things. It's either really good or it's just absolute pants.
And it can go to pants.
So very quickly. It goes.
It seldom goes reverse that way.
No, it doesn't go from shit to good in a great rate of knots.
No, but it can, it can go from great to shit really quickly.
Yeah.
But I'm very, like I say, I'm very fortunate with the boys. We're all the same age. We're all in our 50s, and we've all had sort of similar experiences.
World weary.
Yeah, and we have a lot. And Dave and Aaron are very different people as well. Dave's very enthusiastic, and Aaron's slightly more quiet and thoughtful. And they make a great team. And it's a lot of fun putting songs together with them, and because I'll go in with like raw lyrics and some chord progression and some ideas, and then, man, these guys know how to put a song together.
So, is Road Dog really sort of driven by you, or does it or do you go, hey guys, I'm going to bring this to the table, and then everyone kind of sort of fleshes it out? What's the process for you guys?
When I originally came in, I had the songs because they were the songs that we were going to record, so we put those songs together and then we added a couple more that I sort of had on the back burner, and that sort of became our original show. And then just over the last sort of winter, we've put about 4 more songs in the set that I've written, but I've written them more with the guys.
Right,
and the guys
okay,
are it's quite an open process. I don't tell the guys what to play.
Yeah.
I don't come in and say, you play this and you play that. I
Yeah.
love what they do, so I just say, here's the idea, and they come up with genius stuff. So it's a pretty open... I think that's why they like it too. There's no, I'm quite hands off. I'm not going to tell anyone what to do or try and control things too much. It's got to be. And I was on the phone to Dave this afternoon before I came over here, and we're talking about one of the new songs that's in the set, and I said, "Oh, you write some lyrics for that song because we're doing it, And he goes, oh, we haven't got much time. And I don't care, just get it together.
Yep.
And I like to go on stage, not quite sure what's going to happen, but,
Seat of your pants
and it'll
type
be
stuff.
fun,
Yeah.
and it's got to, and we laughed about it. And that's to me, that's what it's kind of got to be like. I don't want it too rehearsed or...
polished.
Yeah, no, and
you're not a boy band.
No, that's right. And
Yeah,
we're not,
no.
the record companies aren't beating a path to our door because we're 17,
Yeah, well, yeah.
So, and we look great. So it's got to be fun, and it is fun, That's the most fun for me if I walk out and you're just not quite sure what's going to happen. But whatever it is, it's going to be fun. And who cares? You drop a note, it's not, it's not the end of the world.
Not the end of the world. I just want to talk about the 2 essentially different careers you've had, because you've had your time over in Australia and then you've had your time here. Talk to me about the differences between fun. Because I don't imagine Australia would have been the hard grind. That would have been fun in a different way. But how has your perspective of fun changed?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think at my age, your motivations are very different from what they are at kind of 25.
Yes.
And I've got a house now, and I've got a beautiful wife and a decent car and dog and all that sort of stuff, and
life is good and sorted.
Yeah, but and I don't mean that in like a facetious way. I mean all those
No,
things that you think when you're young that you want to get. I was never really sure I was going to get kind of that out of rock and roll anyway.
Right.
And kind of fun was just going out and partying and playing without too much clear idea of where I was even going or what I was doing. But see, it's different for me now too, because in the last few years I've got into songwriting, and that's sort of changed things a little bit as well, whereas it's sort of partly about the songs now. I'll put my hand up straight away and say I'm not the greatest singer in the world.
Yeah.
But in a way I don't. In a way I think as long as you deliver the story of what the feel of what you're trying to get across, then people buy into that, and you don't have to be the greatest, and all you have to do is show them that you're there to give them 100%, and they'll buy into your.
Yeah. I think obviously we were sort of talking before, about how when COVID hit, and you had this wonderful little run of shows. Now that we're sort of starting to get back into the swing of things with like bands are starting to do a little bit of touring, locally we're starting to see bands open up as well. Do you think for you that now that we've had COVID, you've developed this focus more on songwriting and storytelling, that's going to allow you to connect better with people because you understand, well, you're here because you genuinely want to be.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's interesting because that's kind of the business model we're trying to follow too. Is that like we want to attract people to come and see the band. We don't really want the band to be background music for some other promotion. You know? So that's an interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting sort of perspective. That, for me now, the songwriting factor has sort of changed things in terms of like, because I try, most of my songwriting is about people and about the interactions between people. Of course, my experiences, but also, you know, like, you know, how do we bloody get through life, you know, and that's, you know, and so I hope. I try to write songs that are relatable, that people can relate to, you know, and stuff like that, you know, and that average people can relate to, and, you know, so, but it's interesting, just what you were saying before about the differences between here and Australia and stuff like that, because I got a quite a good start, like I say, the old Cascades Tavern back in the day. Good old Cascades. And a few other places. What I've found, I don't mean this as a sort of harsh criticism of New Zealand, but what I've found here is a bit more of the old "she'll be right" attitude, which I find I prefer the make sure it's right. Attitude, and it's, you know, make sure you've got spares and backups, and like the show must go on.
Prepared.
So you've got professional, you know, like you turn up on time in a fit state to do what you're supposed to be there to do, and all those things. And I was very fortunate to have a couple of contacts with Tommy Emmanuel, the great
the great Tommy Emmanuel.
The great Tommy Emmanuel. And like he came and gave a talk to a group that I was a sort of like a little university course thing that I did out of Western Australian University, which was like a music management course thing. And then I was lucky enough to do another thing. I went and did a course with him actually in 2012. I did one of his courses in Australia and had a little bit of interaction over the years. No, I mean, he doesn't know who I am, but from talking to him and from what he says, I learnt a lot from him about professionalism, you know, how to go about being professional in the business. And
conducting yourself.
Because no one comes along and tells you are here. This is where you are on the... on the totem pole. That's right. And so you have to kind of make your own place, you know. You have to make a place for yourself. And I think, like, I'm a bit of a believer in setting standards. You know, you've got to have a standard, and that's one of the things over there. If you didn't have a show, if you weren't up to it, you didn't work, because there were so many other bands that would just come in and see you later, man. If you weren't there on time, you weren't there next week. You know, and
that you got at that level of professionalism.
Yeah, that's right. And unless you're there and you have a good attitude and you can talk to the sound guy without being an ass, or you can talk to the bar people and you can talk to the management and conduct business and have it together, then you just fucking get blown away, you know. And and I'm not saying that happens here, but that's where I learned. And what I've found here is there's a little bit of it's kind of like a party vibe. You've got the gig going on, and it's a bit of a party vibe, and it's like, nah, hang on, man, you know, there's some things that shouldn't be happening here. That you know,
we conduct ourselves in a professional manner.
Yeah, that's right.
We're here to entertain you.
Yeah.
But we're also here to make sure that business is taken care of.
Yeah, that's right. We're here to do a job, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, your job is to entertain people, and you know, and that's, you know, some people don't like that, but some people want, you know, some people are there because these songs are the greatest songs that mankind needs them, you know, and like, I've had people actually say that to me, you know, mankind needs my songs. I was like, fuck me.
Yeah, who doesn't love a self-aggrandizing artist? My God, like the world needs more of them.
Fuck, I'm like from the school of, if you get you a shot, you know, be grateful and fucking grab it with both hands. Do your very fucking best, you know.
Yeah.
I just, you know, and that's just where I come from. And keep it real, man. There's that many guys out there that are friggin' really good players, and you know, you got to keep it real and just go out and do your job. Give it 100%. And you'll get there, you know.
So you're living in Dargaville. You essentially
well, I live at Bailey's Beach.
Bailey's Beach.
Yeah, I live a little bit out of Dargaville at Bailey's Beach, which is a bloody great place to live because I like a little bit of fishing just with my surfcaster, and I like to do that a little bit. And,
absolutely beautiful out there.
And we've got my wife and I have a little cottage with a nice section, and my wife's very into gardening, and so I like gardening too. So we've got
Bailey's such a long beach as well. It's massively long.
It is, yeah.
So. Start off in Te Koporu.
Yeah. Well, the maternity hospital was in Te Koporu.
So Dargaville?
Yeah.
Let's call it Dargaville. Head overseas.
Yeah.
Live your life.
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah. Well, sort of grow up a little bit, I suppose.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then come back to Dargaville.
Basically Bailey's Beach again.
Bailey's Beach.
Yeah, Dargaville.
Where's the next few years taking you? Before we started this segment, we talked about having a goal.
Yeah, right.
What are your goals for the next few years?
Well, I've got some goals with Road Dog. I've got some definite goals that I because I really believe in this band. I'm not having any problem. I've always been reasonably good at going out and hustling gigs and getting getting bookings for bands and stuff like that. But with Road Dog, it's very easy because I really believe in it. We have a lot of fun. The music's good. I believe in the songs. And I've got to kind of thank Caitlin a bit for that. She really is the one that pushed me with my songwriting and gave me some confidence. And then working with the boys has given me more confidence in my songs. And so, and they're sort of getting on board getting behind it's really helped. And so I'm not having any trouble kind of getting out there and selling the band because I really believe in it, and I believe the band can do really well, but we do want to kind of do something a bit different and stay away from probably traditional, no disrespect to anyone, but I would very much like us to sort of cut our own path. I think there's some, we're looking at some new territories. We're just like our first gig that we got in Davenport, we've got sponsorship from Epic Brewery for that, and that's an avenue that I want to kind of explore a bit more in terms of business.
You've got like a little 4-gig run lined up, don't you? Talk to me about those, because they did sound quite interesting.
Yeah, well,
so you've got the Devonport show.
Yeah, we've got the show in Devonport at a bar called Tiny Triumphs in Devonport.
When's that?
It's on the 17th, Saturday, the 17th of September, that is.
Oh, wow, so coming up.
Yeah, that's coming up pretty soon.
Cool.
And that's the gig. We've got some sponsorship from Epic Brewery for that. They sort of helped to sponsor that show, and so we're very grateful to Epic. And they've been, it's been really nice to do business with them, and that's been kind of part of our plan, is to try and we're also, something we're quite excited about, there's a fantastic cafe called the Utopia Cafe on Kaiwaka on the way to Auckland. It's about an hour north of Auckland, and it's an absolutely fabulous place. And they've
Utopia Cafe? Where's that?
It's in Kaiwaka. Do you know where the Kaiwaka cheese shop is?
Oh, hell yes, I do.
It's right next door to the Kaiwaka cheese shop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's got a fantastic place. If you haven't been there, go and have a look at it. The people who have rebuilt it
Is that the boat?
The boat's a bit further up on the right. The boat with the seagull sort of thing. That's a bit further up the road. Utopia's just a little bit behind the thing, but it's all the sort of, it's absolutely amazing place.
Cool.
The work that they've done, you could spend an afternoon easily there just looking at, so everything's just been done so lovely there. So it's really good. I've been talking to Rob and Marika there for a little while they got their licensing sorted out, and finally that sort of happened. And so we've booked a gig there on a Sunday afternoon, and we're hoping to do something really that'll be fun to play there. And we're hoping to get some of the local people on board and do a similar business thing there. And then we're playing a gig in December at the Fat House Brewery. That's in Bow Islands.
That's Haruru Falls.
Yeah, just out of Paihia. So that's happening. And the night before that, on the Saturday, the 10th of December, we're at the Central Hotel in Dargaville, because that's been my kind of little spiritual home. Where if I want a gig, I can go and have a gig at the Central, because the people, Brenda and Paul and Wade at the Central, have been very kind to me over the last few years, and and we've got a very good relationship. Actually, they've got really lovely people to work with, and so we we've booked a band in there, and we'll do a show in Dargaville. We had a great show in Dargaville at a place called the Funky Fish out at Bailey's Beach in May for New Zealand Music Month. And,
right.
So we did 100 tickets, and they sold out in an afternoon. So we were blown away with that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was good. So we're looking forward to doing another show in Dargaville, and
Yeah.
and the boys like coming up north, so it's good. They love it up here.
Are you going to look at expanding further into Auckland, or are you sort of quite happy doing little piecemeal bits?
Well, we've done the sort of 4 shows just to sort of we've booked these 4 shows, and we're not really booking anything more until we get the show on the road, get a few gigs under our belt, and then you probably know what it's like. Once you start working, work starts coming in.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So we just want to sort of make sure. We want to sort of. I don't want to sound cynical here, but I would rather us, do the right gigs too, and
So
me,
you're not going to take any gig.
No,
you're going to be rather choosy with what you want to take. Yep.
Well, I mean, we want to go out and entertain people as well, but at the same time, everything's kind of got to be a step forward for us at this stage.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
It's got to be kind of a step forward and doing something that's going to help us. Because I think, like people who like the band, every experience we've had with a live audience so far has been great. People like the band and they like the music, and like I say, it's a fun band, but it's serious music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of.
Describe the style, because obviously you've moved into this singer-songwriter phase. So what is the sort of style that you guys do, and what is your writing style?
The band's quite interesting because my sort of background's basically sort of playing in sort of blues, rock, and pub bands and stuff like that, and Dave's or more out of the rock sort of scene as well. But Aaron is very much kind of out of the jazz scene, and that's been very interesting. And I actually, in the last few years, I've gotten very into but I've gotten sort of interested in guitar terms. I've got interested in chord voice leading and more jazz concepts in blues, like say using more jazz ideas in blues and trying to get my blues a bit more sophisticated and working on stuff like that. But as a writer, what tends to happen is what I try and do is not put up any hurdles or roadblocks. And if something comes out, if I'm sitting, usually I write with the guitar and I'll come up with a phrase, and a phrase will pop into my head and I can start building something from there.
Yeah.
But what it is, I don't know. And it can be like we play full-on rock songs and we play almost country-ish sort of stuff.
Oh, right.
So there's a
however
jazzy,
the song evolves.
Yeah, that's right. There's funky stuff in there, and there's sort of jazzy sort of stuff in there.
Yeah.
So whatever comes out kind of comes out, and then we'll put it together. And like I said before, the boys are very good arrangers, and so whatever we come out with is. I'll only take stuff into the boys if I think it's kind of good enough, and then usually they'll say, let's do something with this, and they'll come up with good ideas, and then they'll add parts. And Aaron's got kind of good, he's got good theory knowledge, so him and I talk. Mm-hmm. And the boys are very professional, so things happen very quickly, and they're very good at retaining what's going on too. When we're rehearsing, we're not pulling things to part all the time and trying to put them back to, well, how did we fucking do that? And we do a little bit of that, but we've got a great place. We rehearse at a place called the Underground in Penrose, and it's run by a guy called Dave Perillo, whose family used to have Perillo shoes in Auckland.
Oh, right.
And and Dave is a fantastic guy. He's another really great guy, and he's got a great facility, and he's also got his Sicilian food truck sort of set up at the underground, and so you go there and like people are having their dinner and stuff like that, and there's quite a vibe there. It's a great place to rehearse. So we go in there, and there's good facility with whiteboards and stuff like that, and we can get in there and work really good. The guys are great, real professionals. Turn up on time, ready to rock, and so our work sessions are pretty full on though. It's usually sort of like 2.5, 3 hours is pretty intense and full on, but it's good.
The drummer's name is
Dave Morello. Dave
Morello. Now Dave's got Tama and Peisty endorsements.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You haven't mentioned once. What are your weapons of choice? Because I mean,
well, for years, I like small.
are you like a Gibson or a Fender or a Framus or?
No. I started life on a Stratocaster, and I used that Strat, which I bought a Strat new in 1989, which I still got, and that's the sort of guitar I have at home, or it's always within reach, and it's pretty. That's how we actually got the name Road Dog, because that's what that guitar is. It's played.
Wow.
A lot of shows,
so
and it's pretty beat up, but it's
some time on the road.
And it's pretty beat up, but it's great, and I love it. And when I always liked the Les Pauls, and always sort of had a Les Paul style guitar, just as kind of a backup and to muck around on. And then for my 50th birthday, I was going to buy myself a Gibson Les Paul.
Oh.
And then a friend of mine turned up, and he imports secondhand Japan guitars, and he turned up with this Greco Les Pauls, black custom Greco Les Paul, and it's turned out to be a freaking good guitar. Although it's just started having a problem a little while ago with going out of tune, so it's going to the doctor on Wednesday when I go to Auckland.
Right, yeah.
So next week it's going in for some surgery, and we'll get that sorted out. But I've got another Les Paul. I like that one so much I bought another one.
Brilliant.
So I've got a couple of these Les Pauls which I really like, and I've sort of converted to Les Paul. But I'm actually building myself a Telecaster at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, I'm getting. I've bought the pickups from Mr. Glynn. You know, Mr. Glynn, who used to do setups. He had a shop just off Simon Street in Auckland, near Bungalow Bills.
I know.
Mr. Glynn, he's a really good man. He set up all my guitars and that, and he's really good luthier. But he's gone to winding pickups, so I've bought a couple of
custom pickups.
Yeah, custom pickups. So I bought a couple of custom pickups. So I've got this Telecaster that I've got I found some old mahogany that a guy had, and a maple top. So I've made it like a Gibson, like a Les Paul with a mahogany body and the maple slab on top. And then I've got a maple neck, and I'm just at the stage of sort of getting it all put together, and that's going to hopefully be my
your main guitar.
My main guitar for Road Dog, because I like the sound of P90s, but I've never liked the look of P90s. But it's got a humbucker style looking P90 in the neck, and then a nicely wound vintage style pickup in the bridge, and I'm hoping that'll be my Road Dog guitar, and that'll be the main thing I sort of take on the road. I just need something I can bash and keep in tune.
Yeah. Something that's got a bit of durability behind it.
And like for amps, I like kind of small valve amps. Like I'm mainly using like a 15-watt valve amp at the moment, like just crank right up. And,
nice.
And because, like when you're young, you want a Marshall, 100-watt Marshall with a freaking...
I had a 100-watt Marshall.
And like by the time you've done your 25th gig, you're like, why am I fucking humping this
this
thing's
around? Heavy.
But I only ever get to put on about 1.5
Yep.
in the tiny fucking rooms I'm playing in.
Yes, this all sounds very familiar.
Sounds like shit. So now I've gone the other way, and I go small and crank it right open, and I think that's a much better way. But I kind of base my whole sound. I base on getting a good, clean sound, a nice, loud, clean sound. Good loud, not bad loud. Good loud, clean sound, and then work on that, and with a couple of overdrive stages of pedals, just for sort of to filthy up the rhythm a bit. Sometimes when you fatten it up when you need to, and then to 3-piece.
But
you've got to, you've got to, like when you hit your leads, you've really got to punch out
there.
A boost. So so that's kind of what my setup is. I don't use much gear. I use a wah, of course, and I've got a couple of overdrive stages. I've got a little delay pedal, which is a really good little thing. It's only about that big, but it's a great little delay.
Oh, nice.
It's a real nice sound, and a reverb, because I use 2 amps. I've got a couple of amps that I use, and neither of them have got built-in reverb, so I've got a reverb on the floor as well, and that's about my setup, apart from a tuner as well,
Okay.
So it's pretty simple. Pretty simple, but also I like to... you can get a lot of different tones out of it, like a Les Paul. If you use the tone knobs properly, and even with volume and stuff like that, we have a wide range of sort of stuff that we're covering, which I like. I like that ability to change tone and you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and you're not hitting people just with the same thing for an hour and 20 minutes, you know.
It's a long time to be hitting people with
the
same thing.
Yeah, with like, you know, too much overdrive, too much treble,
Yep.
and too loud, you know.
Yep.
It's like...
Mix it up. Dynamics.
yeah. Well, you know, that's the key. And that's one of the things that's one of the great things of playing with these guys is that understanding of dynamic range as well. And,
Yeah.
you know, mixing all those things together, or putting all those components together and mixing up in, you know, a good product with some dynamic range and a bit of light and shade and
Nice.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you guys have got some really cool things coming up. I mean, I think the thing that I like hearing is that you guys are going to try something a little bit different in terms of following the just take any gig you can get your hands on.
Yeah,
I've certainly been guilty of that.
Yeah. Well, often, you know, it can work against you, and like sort of, you know, like I have to be honest. At my age, it's not. You know, I'm not. You know, when you're young, you're hungry, and you'll go out and you'll do everything and that's the way it should be, probably. You know, and you should grab every chance you get. But it's important to me that we present the band the right way, and that the band's presented in a way that we play best, and that's going to be the best. You know, it's like anything, man. The band's a promotion for the band, you know.
Exactly.
So,
and you always got to put your best foot forward,
right? That's right. And like, you need to be in the right environment to do that. So, you know, the last thing we need is someone come, turn it down. It's like, no.
Yeah, or the other one, which is, there's I got a 21st coming up.
Yeah.
Can you guys come and play?
Yeah, maybe.
Look, Pete, thank you so much for coming in and sitting down with me today. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. No, it's been fun, actually. It's just remind me of some of the old stories. Like, Jesus Christ, did I really do some of that stuff?
And it's funny, you know, you get to reminisce on things, and that's so cool with a lot of the artists we've had so far, is they go, you know, they'll walk out going, I completely forgot about that. And it's just super cool. And, you know, you've been really open and cool, which has been awesome. It's always good to talk with fellow musos as well. So, again, thank you very much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Yep. Cheers.
Oh, boy. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete O'Neill. Man, that was really, really cool. It's funny, you know, we've done 10, 11, 12, 13 of these podcasts now. Still relatively new in the grand scheme of things, but, you know, it's really nice. And I've noticed it quite a few times where you have a guest come in and they'll sit down in the chair, and they'll be a little bit shy, a little bit closed off initially. And as they sort of start talking, the more they kind of start opening up. And by the end of it, the conversation tends to flow really, really freely and really nicely. And look, I think Pete's is another really good example of that. You know, he shared so much. His big love, and you can see it. His big love at the moment is his new band Road Dog, with a couple of really good players from Auckland. You know, he's really excited about the project and what he's got coming up as well, in terms of like you know, a few gigs as well, which I think is really cool. It's always nice when you see an artist get really excited and passionate about what they've got going on. And again, that's a wonderful format that we have here, is that we get to bring that excitement to the people that are listening or watching, and you know, you get to find out all these really cool things. So, where can you, the audience, the listener or viewer of this fine podcast, where can you find us? Well, you can find us in a few different places. I will endeavour to do what Andrew does so incredibly well. For our visuals, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Northland Artists Conversation. For audio podcasts, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts under Northland Artists Conversation. And if you're an artist and we don't know about you, and you would like to come and sit in the chair, please feel free to reach out to us. The email address is hello@northlandartistconversation.co.nz. Now, if you've been a long-time listener or viewer and you'd like to do a little bit more for the podcast, support the podcast a little bit more, we also have a Patreon page. Now, a few people have said to me, Patreon's not working. And I've gone and checked over everything, so I'm not entirely too sure what's been going on there. But what I will say is that I will make sure that this Patreon page is working. I'll sit down and watch some YouTube tutorials, because that's how we do everything nowadays, isn't it? YouTube tutorials. I worked out how to get the display part of my work vehicle working again by watching a YouTube tutorial. Thanks, YouTube. I digress. Patreon. It's where you as a listener or viewer can actually donate and support the podcast. We are the little podcast that could, and we will keep growing. We have 2 tiers. We have tier 1, which is $5 a month, or as I like to call it, a cup of coffee. That's just a general way to support us. The second tier we have is Coffee Addict, and that is $20 a month. That gives you a couple of extra perks that the $5 one doesn't have. And you can find that on patreon.com/Northland Artist Conversation. The big thing I like about all of those is that the majority of the social media platforms that we have, or the more popular ones, you can go to them and type Northland Artists Conversation in there, and you'll find us. On YouTube, always a really cool thing, if you'd like to like, share, and subscribe. It's really cool. Leave a comment. I try and get to them where possible. On our YouTube page as well, give us one of those. You get all the little different emojis. So you might have like the thumbs up, or the little love heart, or the laughing face emoji, or the angry emoji. I don't really understand them properly. And then leave a comment, and if you do, we'll try and respond to it as quickly as possible as well. Instagram, also throw us a like or a love heart as well. That'd be really, really cool. Man, who have we got coming up? Whew. The list of artists is starting to get pretty big now, and it's starting to get really cool. This podcast will go out around October, which will be great. And we'll have done a new batch of recordings, and we've got some super cool people coming through. I'm not going to give too much away, but October is definitely going to be a month worth checking out. And if you are just finding us, go back and have a look at some of the other ones. There's some really fascinating people there as well. So thank you everyone for your support. I'm going to throw to the wide camera. See, I had to pause there so that way whoever's editing this can go. Sweet, we can just cut to a wide. As is always, my name is Mark Kelly. Sitting in the chair normally would be Andrew McKenzie. So thanks from Andrew as well. This is the Northland Artist Conversation. Thanks very much for checking us out, and we will see you guys real soon.